I'd like to officially call the regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order on Monday, April 8th, 2024. If we could all stand and face the flag and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have roll call, please.
Yes. Member Wilner?
Here.
Member Allen?
Here.
Member Creel?
Here.
Member Krug?
Here.
Member McDonald?
Here.
Member Sear?
Here.
And Chair McAlpine.
Here, we do have a full quorum for this evening's meeting, so we will proceed. First up is the approval of the agenda. We all have received the agenda in our packet. There's also one at the table should anyone need it. But we do need a motion to approve the agenda, or if there are any changes or additions that need to be made, we can entertain those at this
Move
point.
to approve as submitted.
I'll support.
Perfect.
Voice call.
Yes, I'm sorry, voice calls for approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the agenda for this evening's meeting has been approved. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes from our meeting that was on Monday, February 12th. Those were also included in our packet. At this point, we will entertain discussion if there's anything that was omitted and needed to be changed, or a motion to approve the minutes that we received.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we have a support?
Support.
We'll go with Wilner for the support. Voice call for approval of the minutes from our February 2024 meeting. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, next up is old business. We do not have any old business, correct?
Correct.
So then we will move on to the first item of new business. It's application PBA 0424. It's Flame Furnace representing the property owner at 1957 Edgewood Boulevard, parcel 25-17-176-005, located on the south side of Edgewood Boulevard between Henley and Mortensen, and they are requesting a non-use variance for a side yard generator. If you could please give us some background.
Yes. So the request is for a non-use variance for a side yard generator already installed by Flame Furnace. The zoning ordinance, chapter 138, article 3, division 1.5, exterior appliances, was adopted March 1st, 2021 by city council and effective April 1st, 2021. 138-73A1, power generators and other exterior appliances shall be located in the rear yard at least 6 feet from the side property line. The request for a variance is due to the inability to place the generator in the rear yard due to the number of operable windows and landscaping not complying with the manufacturer's specifications. Rear yard setback definition is a yard extending across the full width of the lot, the depth of which is the minimum horizontal distance between the rear lot line and the nearest line of the main building. The rear of the main building has different extending points and would be required to go from the furthest point horizontal. There is an example in the packet. We ask the Zoning Board of Appeals to determine an approval or denial for a variance to allow 1957 Edgewood Boulevard the installation of the side yard generator. If an approval is determined, conditions can be included, such as screening and hours of the routine testing for the generator to take place, and hours, like such Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So, for a variance to be approved, the Zoning Board of Appeals shall meet the standards of section 138-606 of the zoning ordinance. Based on findings of facts, we request the Zoning Board of Appeals to determine if there are unique characteristics of the property and the applicant demonstrated a practical difficulty in order to grant a non-use variance. Motions for approval and denial, were included in your packets.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Anderson before we proceed and ask the petitioner to come forward? All right, so at this
I
point,
have one question.
Sure.
Are side yard air conditioning units allowed?
They are allowed under that ordinance in regard, you have to meet special requirements. You have to have 12 feet from the adjacent property, 18 inches from your lot line, side lot line, and have to have screening, 3 sides of screening. Street view, adjacent property, the dwelling would be considered one of the screening. So that's on ACs, but the generators have to be in the rear
Right, okay,
unless a variance is granted.
thank you.
okay, if there are no other questions, I would invite the petitioner to come forward. If you can state your name and address for the record and tell us about the variance request and what you're asking for.
Stand here. Hi, Roman Prescott, 1957 Edgewood Boulevard. This whole issue was supposed to be handled by Flame, and I'm here because they are not. I think all of you have the materials for why it was put where it is, the difficulties of putting it anywhere in the rear yard, and essentially the lack of alternatives, and I'm here to answer any further questions you have, and as she said, any conditions, including screening.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the petitioner? Yes, Mr.
I
Wallner?
have a question. So when was it installed?
I believe it was March or April of last year. I don't have the exact date. I would have it with me if I knew I was going to be standing here today, but I thought I was.
So the permit application was submitted and then it was incomplete, so it was returned. And then it was resubmitted, so between the time it was submitted and resubmitted, they just installed it? Without a permit?
Yeah.
And you weren't aware of the
You basically bought it, they said they were gonna do all their part and they didn't.
I specifically asked them several times, what you will be working to get with Berkley to get a permit. Yes, we are fully responsible, following all guidelines, and it wasn't until I received that letter 6 months later that I knew anything incorrect had happened.
So how did he get notified, like, why are we here, it was installed and they never got a permit? How did they?
Yeah, because I kept going back and forth with the emails that were provided in the packet, requesting additional information because it was incomplete. And then it was denied because they had identified it to, go onto the side. I did not know at that time that it had already been installed. I was just denying it. And then found out it was already installed.
So now we're just playing catch up on the situation.
Mm-hmm, correct.
Mr. Allen?
I'll wait until.
Okay, oh, so I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's you now.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I should.
No problem. I really doubt that this is the first generator that has ever been installed by Flame Furnace. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that. That's a mess. But the problem is we get quite a few of these over the last couple of years where this becomes, instead of going and asking for permission or getting the variance, they come here to beg for forgiveness after they've already done it. That's not how you do business, ever. And I wish Flame was here. I really do. And I'm sure you do as well. But
I can't tell you how much I do.
it's just to the point of ridiculousness. I mean, those are there for the protection of everyone that lives in this village or in this city, and it just astounds me. That's all I can say.
So the generator, I mean, you're saying it couldn't be put in the backyard?
Yeah, it was essentially because of the amount of windows all along the backyard, every access point was too close to a window on our house. So we essentially were talking about ripping up bushes, possibly moving the landscaping, but even then, all of the suitable areas were still too close to an open window. This was the only spot we could find. And as we were going through this process, neither they and obviously I didn't know there was a side yard issue. And
Well, they knew when they submitted, they got rejected, so they knew there was an issue.
yes, afterwards.
So wait, they put it in and then tried to backtrack and do that?
Possibly, I'm not sure when the
Yeah.
actual date of
I mean, so
installation
they knew,
was.
they knew there, at least they knew.
Right.
Whether they told you or not, they knew there was a site, they were denied because there was they can't have it on the side of the house.
From
From
what
when I
I
went by there, it looked like, I would guess it's a good 6 feet from the house. And from what was submitted here, it's saying you can't be within 5 feet of any window or opening. So if it's 6 feet away from the house, it could be anywhere. It could be on the back of the house, 6 feet away.
And essentially, when we bought the house, the landscaping in the entire backyard following the windows has plantations, rocks. The entire bedding follows that. And we would essentially have had to rip all of that out. And when we were thinking about this, they also said if you put it in the back, it's also going to project off of the wall of your house more to your back neighbors. So I didn't know of the side yard issue again, and we're looking for a place that it can be put where it's safe within their regulations and what I thought were the regulations at the time. They submitted an application before they installed it, but they didn't wait to get a permit, from what I understand. Yes, essentially everywhere along the back of our house would have required substantial movement of what was there. And part of my thinking in where it was when we installed it is that our AC compressor is there as well. I'm assuming that compressor's been there since the house was built. And probably the variance didn't exist at the time the compressor was put in, I don't know. I hope I answered your question.
So I
Yes.
just want to get a couple of things straight on the timeline, because we see this December of last year application back and forth with Kim, and you're saying this was installed in like March of last year? 9 months before? I'm not gonna hold you to the exact date, but just the general time period?
That was when they were having essentially, they submitted the original application sometime prior to when they installed it. I don't know the exact date. Several weeks, probably February, March, thereabouts. And it was installed, and then the rejection came in August. So there's kind of, when they submitted the incomplete application.
Yeah, I couldn't answer in regards to some of
Yeah.
that also.
Yeah.
You know, the application when it was incomplete, you know, trying to have communication with them back and forth and not getting the responses from them from when they submitted the application. That's when I finally sent out an actual letter and sent everything back. So it had been, you know, going back and forth through phone conversations, trying to get the correct information that I needed.
And so does do you have a contract with them? Did it require that they obtain permitting and pay for the
Oh,
cost of
yeah.
a zoning application if need be? That's all
Absolutely.
contained in there?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm just looking at a remedy. I mean, if the board were to deny this, I mean, is there any other place you could even put it, according to them or according to the regulations of the city of Berkeley?
Honestly,
Manufacturers too. Manufacturer specifications is what has to be considered.
yeah.
So there's really no other, to your knowledge, there's no other place it could go.
Without
Wow.
removing bushes and landscaping against the back of a house, no. Or trenching and putting it further back in the yard and probably making it more of a nuisance to neighbors around. No, I don't.
So I think the bottom line is, we would have been, had this been done properly, we would have been in the same exact position we're in, reviewing a request prior to them installing it with the same facts, the same, I mean, obviously, the manufacturer specifications wouldn't have changed, your window locations wouldn't have changed, your landscaping wouldn't have changed. We're just now having to go back to fix the problem that we most likely would have entertained back in early last year prior to this being installed.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the petitioner? Yes, Mr. Allen?
No, go ahead.
Oh, Miss Sarah?
I was just going to ask if you had any idea, I don't think it's in our packet, the amount of space between the two back windows just around the corner of where it's placed now, where the, meters are and things like that.
Yeah, that's.
Do you know how wide that is?
The spacing between,
Yeah.
I don't know the exact spacing, but that was the area we were first looking, where there's bushes all planted in front of that, and then rocks, and
So
like I said, all the landscaping.
it's not that that area is not big, not enough leeway. It's just that the landscaping is there.
Yeah, it's essentially that any of those spots, for it to be far enough away from the house, it would essentially be sitting in the middle of where the rocks and bushes are, and, yeah. that-
It looks like it would be really close to that window on
Yeah.
the left.
Yeah.
And if I may say
Yes.
that the manufacturer specifications also do have requirements on shrubbery and stuff distance.
Okay, so in addition, that,
Fire hazard.
yep, okay.
When's the last communication you had with these people? I mean, you tell them we had this going on tonight? And
I spoke to Kim probably as many times as I've spoken to them. I started this entire appeals process on my own, not being sure that Flame was gonna do anything, because I kept being told, oh, we're taking care of it. They said they're communicating, filling out this paperwork. I'm not hearing anything. I'm contacting Kim, not hearing hearing back from her on
She's
what the
obviously not
situation.
hearing from them, you're not hearing from them.
Yeah.
Yes, and until probably the last few months when everything with the measurements were taken, and, they eventually submitted
That
everything.
guy didn't come out till the day before, you had to turn in
Right.
turn in the packet, the one paper packet.
Yes.
When the guy Frank went and did the measurements, he looked at my measurements and said, oh, yeah, okay. He took my sheet and went off, and I don't know what he gave you.
I had handwritten that entire application and was getting ready to type it out, and was talking with Jack, and suddenly they call me and say, oh, don't worry about it, we're taking care of it. And I keep saying, are you sure you sure? Okay. So
All the while thinking that may not be exactly what's
Have
happening.
they been paid in full?
yeah.
If there was an issue, would they be obligated under your contract to come out, I'm assuming, and fix it, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Allen?
Question, procedurally, is there any way that the city of Berkeley could come back after the contractor?
Well, ultimately, there could be in regards to not having a permit, and yes.
Because this could almost be construed as fraud.
That's probably a reach. I mean, I think it's.
I don't think it's a reach at
it's-
all.
it's a
That's
breach.
my opinion.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna give you a little bit of legal background. It's likely his remedy. I mean, he's got the breach of contract if he has to eventually move it, or if there is the city finds it to be in violation of its ordinances, then, you know, according to what he's telling us, contract required them to pull the permit, that's the remedy with him. It may be a massive pain, because you'd have to get a hold of these people who
Yeah,
aren't really prone to
theirs
doing
would be
that.
civil, ours we could do, you know, a ticket or something. And
Yeah,
just not having
yeah.
the permit.
There could be
Right.
some kind of repercussions to Flame, the fact that they did not.
Yeah, they might not be able to do business in the city for a certain period of time, or a fine, something like that.
All right, so do we have any more questions for the petitioner?
Oh, I see.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure, I apologize if I missed this. Is there a testing, the testing was mentioned, is that a once a month, or how often
Okay,
does that happen?
so it's once every 2 weeks for, I believe, 3 minutes. And right now we have it set to Wednesdays at noon.
It's all generators.
So it basically goes on every other week at Wednesday at noon, runs at full capacity for, I believe, about 45 seconds, slows down to half capacity to check its workings, and stops.
And we don't hear it.
All right, well then, if we're good, I will have you sit down, and then we will, do we have any other discussion we want with, I think we're good, right? And I'm gonna open it up to the public. I have your notes, so would you like to speak, or would you like me to read it?
I'll speak.
Come on up, please. If you can just, you know the procedure, state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Jack Blanchard, 1927 Edgewood. I've been working closely with Roman on this and trying to make sure that we get the proper information. So I've submitted some of the drawings. I think you have all that stuff that we've given you on that. When the generator is testing, I was saying I never heard it. One day I was outside and I heard a little buzz. I walked around the garage and it was a generator running. Can't hear it in the house. You gotta be real close to the generator to hear it. I mean, I have to be in front of my garage. So, because the generator is 45 foot from my house and 13 foot from the property line and 15, 16 feet from the garage. And the garage is between my house and the generator. So we have no concern with noise at all, no concern at all with that.
Did Flame ever talk to you when they were installing this?
No. And when I saw them install it, it was 3/4 the way done. And I realized then that there could be a problem with it. I'd making an assumption that they'd gone through the proper permitting process and done their homework.
Sure.
I didn't think to stop and see Kim. I should have, and then we didn't know him sooner. But Flame, in my opinion, and I'm not speaking for Roman, is a real pain. Totally ineffective and getting what we needed for this thing, not showing up, doing a very, very poor job. So,
Well, that is on the record, so we appreciate that as well.
thank you. Any questions for me? There's one more. Any questions for me?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you.
There was one thing I wanted to.
All right, let me just reopen it up to the petitioner real quickly.
Excuse me.
No, you're good. I just have to make sure we're following the
Absolutely.
process.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, as in terms of visibility in those sorts of issues, during this whole process, I've been working with a landscaper to get paneling so that it's not visible from the street or from the Blanchard's property. Obviously, once I found out all this was going on, I wasn't gonna put panels up around a generator that might have to be moved, so I'm willing to do everything I need to make this right, and I'm embarrassed that I am even in this position to begin with. And,
Not you.
I'm at your mercy.
All right, we did not receive any additional email or telephone correspondence, and there is no one else in the audience, so we will close that portion of the public hearing. I will open it back up to discussion with the board to determine how we want to proceed with this matter and this request. So, go
Well,
ahead.
first thing I'd like to say is the fact that there's not very many areas in Berkeley where you have the kind of distance between the homes and you have a garage, an attached garage between. In that, if this is gonna be allowed to be on the side of the house, I think it's the perfect setup for that. There's plenty of distance there.
Yeah, I agree with Steve in the fact that this feels like the fifth or sixth we've had to ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
But it's the first that I don't really fault the petitioner
Oh, no.
in the slightest. I mean, I know the recommendation calls for the screenings, which sounds like he's more than willing to accommodate. I agree with Member Krug on the kind of setup. If we were to deny it, it's gonna be it's gonna be quite a mess. I'm not sure that's our standard, obviously, but I don't know what else the applicant was supposed to do here.
Yep. Mr. Allen?
Yeah, I just would remind everyone at this table that whatever it costs to fix things up, or whatever needs to be done to fix things up, that's of no business of ours, and cannot be taken into consideration.
Correct. But with this, you also want to look at unique characteristics of the property and the applicant demonstrating practical difficulty. So it's not financial hardship or hardship, it's practical difficulty for them to meet that requirement is what could be looked at.
Yes.
So,
Mr. Wallner?
I mean, well, I agree, yes, there are unique circumstances, the distance between the houses. If it wasn't installed, like, so I don't wanna just approve something because it's already there and it's easier. If it wasn't installed, I would certainly say it can be put in the back. It can be 6 feet away from the house, so you're not within 5 feet of any windows. They might have to do a little landscape modification. There's nothing that extensive from the pictures that they couldn't modify their landscape somehow. I would have said no, and I'm inclined to stand by that same stance. It's great that the neighbor's okay with it and all that, but I just don't see that that's, or because it's installed, I don't see that as a reason to grant the variance.
I would agree with that, I think. That it's not, I think if it had come before us before it was installed, I think we would have said, for sake of continuity, that it should be in the back. And if it requires modification to the existing landscaping, I think that would be something that would be necessary.
Any other thoughts, comments?
I'm kind of hung up on B, the need for the variance is not the result of the actions of the property owner or previous property owners. Well, yes, it is. And that puts us in a precarious situation because all 5 of those need to be satisfied. And in my book, I don't think B is being satisfied.
I would agree. I mean,
Yeah, actually,
it's
I
the
agree
homeowner's
with that too.
ultimate responsibility to make sure they have the permit in hand before, the work is done. I mean,
Absolutely.
The actions being the hiring of the furnace company, or just the verification that they had done what they said they were gonna do? I'm curious what the argument is, that the applicant failed to meet that standard.
not having the permit. You're asking me?
It was chosen to be put in the side yard. It needed to be put in the rear yard. And that was not something that we forced upon the property owner, but the property owner chose to do, whether it was him or the contractor that they hired to do it. Ultimately, it falls back in his lap, unfortunately.
Kim, if you were to have this, let's say we go back and they were to have come in front of you, they were to have come to you and talked about this and discussed options, what other options would there have been to install this, meeting the specifications of the manufacturer and everything else that we have to consider when determining where to place this?
If they had gone through the correct process, they would have provided, I would require them to put it in the rear. If they couldn't put it in the rear, then, recommend them come to the zoning board of appeals. Basically, for the rear yard, if you look at the one example I have, for the rear yard, it goes from the furthest point out all the way horizontal across. So even though the comments in regards to putting it into the landscaping and there by the meters, it's actually the rear yard is from the furthest point out of the house back. That's how it's been historically measured for your rear lot line, then also your rear yard. The manufacturers has requirements in regards to landscaping, so as far as, them providing any further submittals to us to show that they could meet the manufacturer's specifications and having it in the rear yard. They would have to, if they couldn't meet that, then I would be sending them to the zoning board of appeals.
So would you have a designated location where you would have recommended they put it?
I would not recommend them putting it. They would have to provide the information for it to me to show that it can or cannot go in that those locations.
So the rear yard is really anywhere in the back of the house.
Yeah, well, there's
I mean-
not a defined definition in our ordinance for rear yard, just your rear lot line.
Right.
And if you look at the rear lot line definition, it goes to, you measure it to the closest point to the rear of the,
Right.
the back, and you draw a horizontal line across.
However, that,
That is one thing that we will be making sure is defined in the new ordinance. But historically, it has been, you take the furthest point of the back of the house, and it's all the way across horizontal for the rear. Then, from that point to the rear lot line is the rear yard.
the furthest projection out might be 6 feet anyway, when they would have to be 6 feet because of the windows. So to me, that's still in the rear yard. The ordinance says rear yard, 6 feet from the side property line, so there's no dimension this way from the house. So, I mean, I think it could have been in the back, in the rear yard, to me, based on that definition. Is it would have to be about 6 feet away from the house, or over 5 feet from the house, so it's not in by any window.
Usually 5 feet for
Yeah.
your manufacturers.
Right. So,
Ms. Sarah?
One of the things that they said they put in the side yard was because in the rear yard, the gas line would be a trip hazard.
That's what they
Does that
wrote
make-
in their application.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is where they're saying that where it would be placed, that, usually your gas lines are.
well, the gas line comes
Very.
out, right now, it comes out of the house and above ground to the unit. It could go out of the house, go down, underground, and then back up.
Okay, if they moved it,
Yeah,
Okay.
even where it is now, they could have done, they just ran it straight across.
okay.
I guess right now, it would just basically, you would want to be considering as far as unique characteristics to the property and practical difficulty for making a determination.
I know every case is unique, but I recall a specific time where someone had a patio, and
Yes.
we put it on the side because they had a patio, and we didn't want it to interfere with the patio. I mean, that was their practical difficulty. This, I think, is, I struggle with how this is different than the patio, because quite frankly, they could have put it somewhere else and forget about the patio. I mean, that's not our,
Were they awarded that,
yes, I believe they were, and we put it on the side.
And that was very tight between homes there too.
Yeah, that was
over
a
on
much
Elmwood or
different, yep,
somewhere.
that was a
Yeah.
much different situation than this is. And we were putting it very close to, and like I said, I know they're all supposed to be different, but when I look at this one, it seems a lot less intrusive than than some of them that we've already granted. And I know we can't set a precedent, and I understand all that, I'm just,
Yeah, so we're saying he essentially has to put this in the middle of his backyard. That's the
And
feasibility
dig
of
a,
it.
dig a gas line.
And dig underneath, because a contractor,
Well, the middle of the yard, it's not really the middle of the, I mean, you're talking.
6 feet up, I mean, yeah, it is.
It's already 6 feet from the house, on the side.
Which makes
It's
a lot
just-
more sense.
But I guess I look at it differently, that it's sitting in the backyard.
I agree.
I just, from the aesthetic purposes and, you know, it's just hard. Well, they really, okay, so to that point, if we made them comply, would it prevent the property owner from using their property for the permitted use? I mean, could it, is it still,
No.
they lose backyard space because they've got this thing sitting in the middle of it. I don't know.
But it wouldn't unreasonably prevent them from using the, I mean, the landscaping comes out that far, so they're not really, you're not using that space, it's landscaped already, like, you're not.
But can it, so what they'd have, but they'd still have, the burden would be on them to take out all of that stuff that they already have there.
Correct.
I know, just, I don't know.
I would just caution everybody again that the 5 standards have to be met, not 4 of 5.
No, I know,
or 3 of 5. All 5.
I wish there was a way the zoning ordinance could be written so when there are situations of like this as far as space between homes and, but I know it could get so micromanaged, I don't know if,
Right. And,
just like the one we had over off Catalpa a couple years ago, you know, it was.
So let me
That was the
ask
same.
you, I know the steering committee is going through the rewriting of all these
Yes.
things. Any of the potential changes we make, would that have an impact on where this is going and where this is allowed?
No, the
Okay.
ordinance is going to remain the same on the exterior
I was just gonna say, since we've
appliances.
gone this long, could we just not
Right.
forget about it till then, and if it was
Table it.
better?
Right, no, the ordinance is not gonna be changing in regards to the placements of.
Okay. Okay, I just couldn't remember all those, obviously, we've gone through it.
Generators, yeah. So the only thing in my report with the question of the B is, as far as, you know, not the result of the actions of the property owner, is the consideration of, you know, originally put in here is the lack of the rear yard. That's where you will have to make the determinations in regards to if there is a lack of a backyard or not. If there is a lack of the backyard, it's not the property owner or the previous property owner's, you know, result of them.
Can you say one more time? So in this example with the rear yard line, that it would have to be 6 feet from there, or it could be placed on that rear yard line?
So with the rear yard line on that particular page, the red line goes from the furthest point out of the house
Mm-hmm.
and out, and that would be where your rear line is, and then they would have to be, you know, I mean, they would be able to be right on that line. But that would be the rear yard, so if they put it, you know, over here, as one of you had said, could it be in the middle of the yard? The landscaping looks like it comes up through this way, so that would be the rear yard.
So would putting it back there also put a burden on the property owner to have that gas line dug and put all the way back there?
No.
Practical difficulty, I mean, that would be the requirement that they would have to run the gas line, depending on where their current gas line is, as far as how far they would have to run the gas line to meet that area.
It almost looks like they could move it straight back from where it currently is. However, it might be almost noisier for neighbors where it is, because you don't have the building blocking it as much.
That's also the access to the backyard. So there's a gate that opens there, so it actually.
there any other questions for me, or, I guess you guys gotta make your determination as far as practical difficulties and uniqueness.
I mean, at this point, it looks, I mean, it would have to sit quite a ways from the house, but then again, it could be moved farther down by the portion of the home that is sticking out in meeting the setback, which,
Do we know that's compliant, or are we just making educated
I
guesses?
mean, the way it's written, if that's word for word, it just says rear yard. It doesn't even say, it just says rear, located in the rear yard.
Yeah.
That's what the ordinance is. So to me, rear yard is anywhere in the rear. There's no,
There is no interpretation
now.
for that on record.
right.
Correct, and that's where historically, it's been from the furthest point horizontal across.
So if we went through the 5 standards, the need for the variance is due to unique circumstances or physical conditions of the property. It's, I guess, because the windows on the back of the house would be the physical conditions.
Could be. The landscaping's physical condition.
Generally, it's kept to the lot itself. If it's
Yeah.
a unusual or unique lot, like a pie shape or a parallelogram, like the one we had a couple of months ago that started out as a normal width lot, and as it went north, it went down to like 3 feet.
But in our
It's-
report, we
it's-
do talk about operable windows, so is that not a?
What's the
an
property,
appropriate-
isn't it the physical condition of the property, not the
Yes.
domicile, the residence? I mean,
the thing is, right now, it's pulled away from the house to clear the windows that are on the side of the house, and unfortunately, it's the same setup in the back, where it'd be a matter of pulling it 5 feet from the house to avoid that, the windows, unfortunately. I wish.
So would it change anything if, that we were 6 months ago and they came in and had this application and Flame was in here telling us that they could not feasibly put it in the backyard under whatever circumstance that they would testify to? I mean, does that, I feel like we're making an assumption here that we don't have all the evidence to be able to confirm that if we deny this application, that there is an alternative that's actually workable.
I believe that Flame could easily move that back to the backyard with no problems and be within conformity. I think right now what they're doing is hoping that we give them a variance and they don't have to go through that.
Yeah.
It's their mistake. They need to move it in the backyard.
I tend to agree with that.
yeah,
And it's unfortunate, I mean,
It is.
and again, part of our zoning, the way it's written, with, it's, even though this is a perfect example of where it could be, if it was in the zoning to be alongside the home, it's a perfect example, but it's not.
This body also has the right to look at everything on a case-by-case basis and make a determination or explanation of what is rear yard. That's well within our realm to be able to do that.
I mean, to what end though? We're gonna tell them where they have to specifically put it, or we're going to?
No, we can't do that.
For us, it would just be, in the rear yard, and then they would have to, Flame would basically have to install it in a location that would meet the manufacturer's
That-
requirements.
That we would deem to be the rear yard.
Right.
Well, then my question would be, what happens if they just say, okay, we're just gonna move it 6 feet and it's just right in the middle of the backyard.
Well, I think that would be up to the property owner to
But they
determine
could
with
come
the
back, well,
property
but they could
owner.
come back and say, okay, I mean, who's to say they're not gonna say to him, okay, we're gonna plot it right here in the middle just cause.
Well, he would,
No, I know, I'm just saying, I'm just hypothetical, like, they could go, fine, if you're gonna make us come back and do this, we're gonna put it right here.
Well, they got a lot of problems when we tell them to do that on that front, but,
Cause if we can't tell them exactly where to put it,
Right, we can't, I mean, we have general pictures of the back, we don't have every dimension of the, you know,
Right,
the
they would know.
rear of the
They-
house.
yeah. They're not gonna wanna put it any further away than they would have to.
Exactly.
For their own cost.
I mean, the problem I foresee is we deny this application, they're gonna be back here in a few months, which is not a problem, you know, per se, but they'll be back here making the argument for the practical difficulty of putting it in the rear yard, and maybe we address it at that point, but, we all know how this is gonna go, as soon as they are, if their contract is subject to approval of the city, that might well be a practical consequence of our decision, and that's fine, but we should very much expect to be back here in a few months dealing with the same issue, and we know what the argument's gonna be.
if we've already
I don't
ruled
think-
on it,
I
though,
don't-
they can't come back, right?
they could file.
Right, correct. If we deny, they would have to file a civil.
If we deny this
If we
applicant's
deny this
motion,
application,
then Flame could not come back
well,
and,
if-
No, they cannot come back and forth. The next course of action is they have to
Circuit
file
court.
they have to
They
file.
could come back with a totally different application though.
right,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
to put
yes,
it
yes,
in
correct.
conformity and.
Hey, it's not gonna be any different. Whatever
Just-
it's not gonna be changed.
No.
I mean, you can use whatever word you want, it's still the same, the effects are the same.
As a matter of fact, the one generator that you had referred to on,
Catalpa, or Elwood and Catalpa?
Elwood?
yeah,
Yeah,
that ended up going to circuit court.
Yes.
and we didn't fight it.
No, we did not.
So,
So you can also maybe, I can suggest postponing it to get more, as you had indicated, as far as more clarification on, rather than not having the exact information for all the details of the back there, to show that it may not be able to go back there, or could go back there with more details.
So I think
That
that-
might be a suggestion.
Yeah, I would suggest then that you ask us to table this so that you can come back and see, and I don't, however you figure it out, but that's probably the best
Best.
course of action at this point.
And it's not
You're-
gonna cost you any more money.
Yeah, I think that gives us the best opportunity to truly see what the options are, because right now we're proposing different things, but I think if you had that, you don't risk us denying your motion. You have a chance still to figure out a way to make this work in that,
Maybe it was a chance to get the petitioner in here.
right,
Yeah,
something,
exactly.
something.
And to be clear, it should be them proposing to you.
That's right.
Where they
And
can
you-
move it to
right, you
And they
comply
should be
with
doing
terms
all
of
the
the
homework
contract.
to.
I know you can only do so much, but I do think that that's the best, before we make a decision that puts you in a place where you've got to deal with them to make them move it,
Madam
let's,
Chairman, can I make
Yes.
a procedural question?
yes.
If you deny this, it goes back to Flame, and Flame is responsible for doing this. Does this board or does the city have any method of enforcing that? I mean, they could run the homeowner around in circles for months doing this.
Exactly.
And not
Yes,
accomplish anything.
we could issue a ticket for them not having a permit for the work. that
That's
was
all they
done.
can do.
That's
Yeah,
all we
so
can
it's-
do.
It's unfortunately a remedy for the homeowner and
Yeah.
a breach of
And that would be a
contract
civil
type of
matter with the
situation.
homeowner.
Right, but I do think that that
I mean, if we
gives you the
table it-
most, the most flexibility in not putting us in a position where we make a decision and see if there's an option, obviously, to keep it where it's at, that we're all comfortable with, without.
And also to be able to demonstrate more practical difficulty in the backyard there, in the rear there,
I-
to
Yeah,
show
more
practical.
detail.
I would
think
trust
if
that
you-
if they don't help you, Jack probably can help you to figure out some more of these things that would help us.
I think if you table it, we're just kicking the can down the road. It absolutely can be put back there, like, like Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no question of can it be put there. It can be put there. I mean, it just has to be 5 feet away from the house, like.
But I guess I just
I'm
struggle
clear
with,
on-
then he's gotta pull out all this stuff and all, like, that, I do
She's
think,
absolutely right.
I
And if
think-
Yeah,
it
but
goes
you're
in
not
my
even
back-
supposed to be,
no,
Alright, come on.
I'll stand back up. If it goes in
No,
the
you-
back
wait,
of
wait,
my
I have,
yard.
wait, I can't. let
Excuse
you-
me.
Okay, I have to, let us just keep going, okay? Cause I do think that there is some undue hardship for the homeowner to have to pull that stuff out and re-landscape and do all that. So
well,
I,
of course, yes, there is
But we
some.
shouldn't-
But
Part
we
of,
can't
that's
consider
a
it.
part of putting in a generator, you gotta do that. You gotta dig up trenches, you gotta put gas lines.
Practical difficulty.
There, it's not practical difficulty, and Flame can easily do this. They do it all the time. It's not, they just put it in the wrong spot, and they're hoping that we give them a variance.
But that's why I think the tabling is not just a, it's not a fruitless exercise. I mean, if they can get their butt in here and tell us why we should consider it, or what the practical difficulty is, would be of moving it or putting it in the rear in a particular position,
Yep.
that's new information.
Absolutely.
I don't see why we should be averse to listening to that new information.
And it's the only way that we can guarantee that it isn't gonna cost this guy more money. Because if we table it until the next meeting, he doesn't have to pay the fee all over again. But if we deny it, then he has to pay the money all over again and come up with a different plan.
He can request.
And likely enforce
You can
the
request.
contract.
That would be up to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
so I guess my question is, would you like us to table this motion?
Yes, please table this discussion.
Okay. All right, so we will table this motion to a meeting at some point in the future, or do we need
It
to
would
set a
go to the
motion?
next meeting.
Next
It would
meeting,
go
okay,
to the May meeting,
okay.
so.
I'll make a motion that we table this for the time being and reschedule it for the May 2022 meeting. 24, excuse me. 2 years behind.
Time's flying by.
I will second that.
All right.
All right, so let me roll that motion.
The second Monday.
Um,
month.
Could we have a roll call vote for that motion, please?
Member Krug,
Yes.
Member McDonald,
Yes.
Member Seer,
Yes?
Member Wilner,
No.
no? Member Allen,
Yes.
Member
Can-
Creel,
Yes.
Can we table it to June?
I'm literally out of town that second month.
Sorry.
Member
Before we-
McAlpine. It's
Yes, to
I'll-
table, and then if we can just amend the motion to the June meeting,
I'll
can we do
amend
that?
the
And do we
motion
need to
the
take another
June
vote?
meeting. And we need to do, whomever it is, we need to do whatever we can do to get Flame in here.
Another
Sitting
procedural
here.
question, how does the petitioner get notified that this has been tabled? Is that a letter from Kim, or is that word of mouth?
And it's, well, it's in the meeting minutes as
Yeah,
well.
it's public record.
Flame's not gonna get the meeting minutes.
Oh, yes, they will.
Okay.
We'll make sure of it.
So we have to amend the previous one?
I did.
Oh, you
Yes,
just said.
amend to postpone.
So we don't need to re-vote on the amendment, or do we?
No. You can't.
Right, I'm just saying, we're all fine that we would move it to June instead, correct, everyone that voted?
No.
A voice call?
I already said no, so.
I changed mine to no.
So we still have 5 of 7 that approved the, this request being moved to the June meeting.
Okay.
This is just an idea, but perhaps a member of the Berkley Department of Public Safety could deliver those minutes along with a letter from our building department to Flame.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your time. Understand this has been a huge
Problem.
inconvenience and difficult situation. All right, so we will then move on to other business. You guys are free to go. You don't need to sit here any longer. Next up is zoning board of appeals. Oh, Jan?
Keep it if you want.
No, Jan,
I'm
whoever.
good.
I got a bunch of.
Okay, thanks.
Next up is other business, and it is the zoning board of appeals rules of procedure amendment.
Yes. So currently, the zoning board of appeals determination on cases are not validated until the minutes from the previous meeting from that case are approved. As the zoning board of appeals does not meet unless there is a case, it could end up being a couple of months for an approval of the meeting minutes from the cases. When the minutes are delayed until the next meeting, it can unnecessarily delay an appeal to circuit court. It is only after the meeting minutes are approved that then the 21-day clock starts under the MEZEA MCL 125-3606. With the proposed amendment to the zoning board of appeals rules and procedures, documentation of determination being signed at the end of the meeting will validate the decision and start the 30-day clock to appeal to circuit court under MZEA MCL 125-3606.
I think that's a reasonable change.
Yeah, that's a good change.
Okay.
We don't want to slow the process down.
Um,
May
Do we
I make a
want,
motion?
Yeah,
Yes.
you need a motion to approve.
do you want roll call or all?
Whichever, a roll call should be fine.
Okay,
Voice
so,
call.
we have a motion on the table. Who was the support? I'm
I'll
sorry.
motion to
Oh,
approve. Oh, somebody already motioned?
Oh.
I'll second.
I did.
Okay, all right, so, all those in favor, or no, we're gonna take a roll call vote, correct? All in, okay,
Voice-
all in favor
yeah,
of
voice is
the,
fine.
all in favor of the, proposed amendment to our rules of procedure, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And then, next up is the staff board member report. So obviously, you included a lot of things in our packet in addition.
Yes, there's both the community development monthly reports for January and February 2024, zoning ordinance steering committee activities, that was in there for February and March. Also for the steering committee on the rewriting of the zoning ordinance. We should expect a full draft in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And keep moving forward on that. Any questions on any of the staff reports or anything?
Okay. Councilman Hennon is not here, so we do not have a liaison report.
Yeah, he did email.
Did I get it? I didn't see if I did.
He's going 10 miles an hour on I-75 coming back from Ohio, I'm sure.
So for Mr. Hennon, he asked to update the board in regards to Mr. Baumgarten's resigning as city manager. His last day is April 19th. Today, April 8th, is the first day for the interim city manager, Nate Ginzer. He will be with us until a permanent new city manager is hired. Council also hired a search firm to assist with the process of hiring a new manager. We expect the process will take about 4 months. There will be updates throughout and opportunities for community input, though we don't know exactly the shape that will take yet, was Mr. Hennon's email.
Very good, thank you.
I have a question. Did we have any alternates that were appointed?
We still have,
think it's the end of
openings
the
on
month,
that.
right.
We have one that, we are waiting to be sworn in, so, but there is openings
For one
for
more.
the ZBA still. If anyone
And I think
knows
we
of
were
any
trying to entertain by
alternates.
the end of April, I think is what Charlene's last email said.
I'm sorry, repeat,
I think she said by the end of April, they were looking for any more,
well, we have been looking.
right, no, we've been looking, but I think
Oh,
her
yes.
email said something about the end of April, they were trying to see if there was any more interest.
Yes, we are still seeking.
Right, we've been ongoing seeking, but they've set that for, I don't know, another window to close, for potential people.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, I don't see anyone here from the public, so I will adjourn the meeting at 8 PM.
All right, thank you.
I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
So we,
Motion to adjourn.
yes.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning?
Anybody went nay, it's back.
Yeah, stay by yourself.